New year, same old us. Welcome back to This Week in Cleantech, your favorite 15-minute roundup of the biggest stories in climate and clean energy. We do it every week except around the holidays. It's been a hot minute. Great to see your mug, Mike Casey. Happy Friday, January 9th, 2026. We got a very special guest we've been trying to get on the show for quite some time. In our digital waiting room is Ivan Penn from the New York Times. You'll get to hear his voice in just a moment. In the meantime, if you're unfamiliar with mine, I'm Factor This content director Paul Gerke, joined as always by Cleantech commentator Mike Casey of Tigercomm. Mike, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, all that and then some. How are you?
Hey, Val. I'm really glad to be back here. How is Gemma Rose?
Man, she's getting bigger every single day. She's discovered she's got hands now. At the time of this taping, she's now 11 weeks old. She's figuring out what to do with those mitts. Sleeping a little more, which is really good for mom and dad. And she's at the point now, man, where I can sit down in the morning with a cup of coffee and just go goo goo gaga and kind of coo back and forth with her. And it's like the best way to start your day. So she's got a lot to tell me, even if I don't understand what it is yet. It's probably a lot like the folks listening to this podcast where it just kind of drones after a while. But there are people that like listening to it, which we do appreciate. Same things goes for my new infant daughter as well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, man. Not speaking of droning, speaking of compelling people, we got to give a big shout out again to Dana Claire Redden. She's the CEO of Solar Stewards, but she also chaired for the second year in a row our Cleantecher of the Year selection committee. Really big thanks. I don't know what we're going to do with Brian Mendez, man, because backstage, I introduced Ivan to Brian, and I just jokingly called Brian the boss. Dude, he seized on that term.
Yeah, he jumped on it right away.
Oh, my God. That's just going to his head.
You got to watch the B word around him. It's a little bit of power. He's a thirsty fella.
Oh, my God. It's going to be star trailer demands and everything. It's bad. All right. I got to say, I'm totally fired up having Ivan Penn on the show. And but I'm going to start with a rant. I am seriously unhappy that we do not have NBC's piece as part of our 5. It informed us that our tax money will be used to compensate highly profitable mature oil companies for their years ago losses in Venezuela. Didn't know that, did you? Your money's going to... Darren Woods needs your tax money, and I know that a lot of Americans are feeling particularly flush right now and generous, so they won't mind their tax money going to fund big oil companies. But hey, I'm ranting. Let's stop. Back to you, Paul.
Yeah, there's no time in the show for where we could go with the Venezuela stuff, Mike. I'm glad you brought that up. But in terms of the stories that do make the show, you guys actually have a say in this. We always appreciate hearing from the viewers, the listeners, and making your opinions a part of what we're doing on This Week in Cleantech. So if you have a story you want to see or 2 cents you want to spare, you can email us right now. The email address is my email address, paul.gerke@clarionevents.com. But I'm putting it on the record to hold your feet to the flame. We are going to have a This Week in Cleantech email address in time for next week's show that you guys can send stuff to. That's just going to be for the show, so we won't have to contend with all of the other stuff that ends up in Mike and I's inboxes, and you guys will get extra special attention in 2026. So let's start by giving you the attention you came here for, and that's not the intros and the what-have-yous. It's the stories that we talk about each week that are making a big impact in your world, making it a little easier or a little harder to do your jobs, depending on what you do. Certainly a lot to get into, considering we skipped a couple of weeks, Mike, so let's do it. Story number 1. Where are we starting?
Yeah, Kelsey Tamburino, you are coming on the show, by the way. Benjamin
threaten them with coming on the show. That's a great way to get them on, Mike.
You're
coming on the show, Kelsey Tamburino.
Me and my powers of persuasion. They write for Politico. Trump administration halts offshore wind projects from Virginia to New England in a major blow to clean power. Paul Gerke.
Yeah, the offshore wind stuff never stops, it seems like. You'd think the industry's died 1,000 deaths at this point, but it's still dying. We've been off since December 19th officially. This is a big one. We didn't want to miss it, even though the story is a little old by the time you hear this podcast. Just before Christmas, the Interior Department announced that it's pausing all leases for large-scale offshore wind projects that are currently under construction in the U.S. That's the important thing to note, because it had paused all future leases previously. The stuff under construction is the new caveat here. This is happening at a time when, of course, You don't need to be told this, but residential electricity prices are going up pretty much everywhere, up about 7% according to some metrics in September 2025. That's compared to a year prior, according to information provided by the U.S. Energy Information Administration. The new pause on the offshore development affects 5 different projects from Virginia to Massachusetts that were planning to generate enough electricity to power about 2.7 million homes in the Northeast. That includes Empire Wind and Revolution Wind, which were paused and later resumed last year. ISO New England said the initial pause of the Revolution Wind project, it definitely raised reliability risks to the region, which is why they were so happy to have that project back under construction. This pause also includes the Vineyard Wind project that had half of its 62 turbines already generating electricity. Right now, it's unclear whether the pause will force those turbines to stop and take energy off the grid. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, Mike, but none of the offshore wind stopping development has. What do you think about all of this?
Well, Secretary Burgum, he who burns the midnight oil, reviewing line by line the permits for private land projects.
He's the guy, the only one, right? They all go to his inbox?
Yep. Yeah. His department said this decision was because of national security risks identified that by the Department of Defense in, quote, recently completed classified reports, end quote. Yeah, right, and I'm the Viceroy of Venezuela, baby.
That's a cool nickname for you. Topical news notwithstanding, just Viceroy of Venezuela sounds like a real punch in the chops. Yeah.
It's better than hey you, but that's what I usually get. All right, the administration is going to raise electricity prices by undoing Biden-era pro-clean energy policies and instead favoring costlier and slower to build fossil fuels and nuclear power. But Dominion Energy, the developer for Coastal Virginia offshore wind project, has said its project already has support from key Republican officials, including House Speaker Mike Johnson and Virginia Representative Jen Kiggins, and that a pause for any length of time will threaten grid reliability. We'll see if anyone listens, Paul.
I could opine endlessly. Instead, we segue to story number 2. This one by one of our friends over at Heatmap News, Matthew Zeitline. The title, The 4 Things Standing Between the U.S. and Venezuela's Oil. Name the 4, Mike Casey.
The Viceroy is speaking. Be quiet now. When the U.S. removed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro from power last week, President Trump made clear that he wants the country's oil. According to OPEC, Venezuela claimed crude oil reserves are the largest in the world, with just over 300 billion barrels compared to around 45 billion in the U.S. and 267 billion in Saudi Arabia. But exploiting these reserves involves several geopolitical and financial steps that could take years and will cost tens of billions of dollars. That's the stuff we would be paying for, sir, than underwriting them. Venezuela produced over 3 million barrels a day from the 1960s to the 1990s. Before nationalization, decades of underinvestment, harsh sanctions brought down production to 1 million barrels per day as of last year. About 120,000 barrels per day currently reach U.S. Gulf Coast refineries, but most remaining exports have gone to China. Paul.
Yeah, that's an important thing to note here, and there's a lot of fine detail that goes into what's standing in the way of increased production in the U.S. getting its hands on it. I recommend you go read Matthew's work on Heatmap News to get the finer details. Everything from the sanctions that need to be lifted to Venezuela needing to rebuild its connections to the global financial world, a lack of investment in the region, the price of oil, which has a lot to do with, in my opinion at least, why the U.S. is in Venezuela in the first place. Greg Brew, an analyst from Eurasia Group, said, quote, the best case scenario is that tens of billions of dollars of U.S. investment flows into Venezuela as the blockade is lifted, sanctions are removed, and Venezuela reforms its laws to allow more foreign investment. That is the best case scenario, according to Mr. Brew. On one hand, the administration is halting major offshore wind projects, as we discussed a moment ago, already under construction right here at home on our shores, and yet on the other hand, we are gung-ho moving forward with a complicated, morally dubious at best, and very risky strategy by any metric to get more oil from Venezuela. Doesn't make sense to me. I say that about 10 times every show, Mike. What is our story number 3?
David Fickling from Bloomberg, he wrote, the positive climate news you might have missed this year, that is in 2025, Paul.
about time we stop grinding an axe and talk about some good stuff on this show. Mr. Fickling compiled some major positive climate developments that occurred over the last year or so for the story. Just to rattle off a few, some grids that have almost totally been decarbonized. About 3/4 of UK and European electricity came from non-fossil fuel sources last year. With more renewables added every year, current projects under construction and in late-stage development could put Europe's grid between 80 and 90% clean energy in the near future. And the world may have passed its peak of cement consumption, which makes up about 8% of global carbon pollution. That's another bit of good news. And then EVs are going global despite some backsliding here in the U.S. Sales share over 20% in some less noticed developing places like Turkey, Thailand, Vietnam. Bloomberg NEF said that 27% of all passenger vehicle sales globally in the September quarter came with a plug. Mike, your thoughts on this?
Okay, to name a few more trends determined by Mr. Fickling, Europe's plug-in sales slowed in 2024, but many argued at the time this was temporary, and indeed it seemed it was, because by the end of September 25, the year-to-date growth rate was 28%, which is 3.9 million sales across the full year. In Australia, on the other hand, where wholesale prices fell about 8% from a year prior in September, thanks to lithium-ion batteries that are flattening electricity prices, reducing volatility, and undercutting gas on price. So, Paul, our fourth story.
Story number 4, Mike, by Sam Meredith at CNBC. China's BYD overtakes Tesla as the world's top EV seller for the first time. Tell me about it.
Last year, BYD became the world's top EV seller, otherwise known as a BFD.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like
I
that?
saved that one for you. You know how badly I wanted to pick that low-hanging fruit? And I thought, 2026, it's early in the year, let Mike have one.
All right, kicking Tesla to second place, the company said sales of its EVs rose nearly 28% to 2.26 million units. On Friday, Tesla said it delivered 1.64 million EVs in 2025, an 8% drop from the year prior. Tesla CEO Elon Musk laughed at BYD's products during a 2011 Bloomberg interview, saying, quote, "I don't think they have a great product." The question, Paul, is, should we send more ketamine to Tesla or send less of it to BYD? Paul, what do you think?
I'll stay away from the ketamine markets, but I will talk about the EV markets with you. It's funny that Elon Musk quote, you got to go back to 2011 to have him say something negative about BYD. I don't mean to make anyone feel old here, but that was 15 effing years ago. A lot has changed since then. Yeah, the product has changed too.
Love you, baby.
BYD
Thanks.
is making some great stuff, and it sort of does laps around Tesla depending on the people you talk to and the product you're talking about. And so this is no surprise to me. I think that if the United States was open for Chinese electric vehicles, the marketplace would be very, very different in the U.S., and obviously we wouldn't be so heavily dependent on gas-powered cars. There's a reason that we can't play in that sandbox here. In the first quarter of 2025, Tesla saw its shares take a bit of a nosedive, partially because of stiff competition from Chinese EV manufacturers and the whole, Elon Musk dipping his toes and feet and arms and head into politics thing. In recent weeks, the stock has come roaring back. It closed at a record closing high of just under $490 American after Mr. Musk said Tesla had been testing fully driverless vehicles in Austin. That's nearly 6 months after the pilot began with safety drivers on board. Mike, our last story of the day and our special guest we've been waiting for.
Oh, heck yeah. Last story is by the reporter we covered the most in 2025, Ivan Penn from the New York Times. He has a piece, Optimism about Nuclear Energy is Rising Again, Will It Last? And the reason this is good to have him on to talk about it is because, fun fact, 11 years ago, Mr. Penn won the Gerald Loeb Award for his extensive reporting on Florida's Crystal River nuclear power plant, and which earned the name out of his reporting, the Humpty Dumpty plant. So, Ivan, the question is, in your reporting, is the new nuclear more Humpty Dumpty or different? I'm going to give you the floor, sir.
Well, it's good to be with you all, this is full circle for me, as I started covering energy writing about nuclear. And so here we are in what is anticipated to be another round of a new nuclear renaissance. The question is, well, as was at the time when I started now, and I guess about 15 years ago or so, do the economics work? We're looking at a different technology. Some are still pushing large scale reactors, but the focus is on what we're calling advanced reactors or small modular reactors. The idea is that they'll be cheaper. They'll come off an assembly line. But right now we still, as yet, do not have one. Some point to, well, we use small reactors on naval subs. So what is the big deal? Why don't we just use that technology and use it to produce power on U.S. soil? But they are different technologies. It has to do with how we enrich the uranium. We can't just use the Navy sub technology. So we had to design something new. And right now we don't have one.
The Axiom $1 million question doesn't even begin to do it justice here, Ivan, nor does a $1 billion question. I'll go ahead and throw a T on it. The $1 trillion question is when. And that when, it has a lot behind it. It's not just when does the reactor show up. It's data centers trying to get power online. It's utilities trying to build out transmission to support the infrastructure necessary. Is there any idea about who might get there first and when that might be?
So there's also a couple of technologies in this small category, and one is micro reactors, which they're also terming them portable ones. We have some companies that are being pushed by the Trump administration to produce something this year. Some are saying they're going to be able to produce those tiny reactors. These are not reactors that will be connected to the power grid, that will be powering our homes and our businesses. More designed for the military, maybe could assist with data centers, but they're very localized, not grid connected. When we start talking about the slightly larger ones, not the micro, we're now moving to small modular. We are expected to see some demonstration test versions of them as early as this year, but not seeing the actual units that are producing power and connected to the grid still for a few years from now. So we're not quite there. We expect to begin seeing the rise of the technology. Some company, NuScale has been certified by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, but again, we don't actually have a reactor. Then a focal point of our story was Kairos Power. They've taken a different approach over the last 10 years, and they expect to have one producing electricity by 2030. But the full commercialization, we're still it's probably a decade.
Ivan, you've spent a lot of time in the past covering the economics of nuclear. Put me down as a nuclear undecided. I'm undecided because amidst the current fervor, I don't hear anybody talking about what we're going to do with the waste. And to date, we haven't found a way to confidently dispose of waste that's going to be secure for 10,000 years. Set that aside. As this emerging sector talks to you, do you find their presentation on the economics more compelling than you found it when you were reporting on this in the past?
In the moment that we're in, we're always dealing with the challenging economics. When we had expected NuScale to deliver the first small modular reactor, and the trouble was that they didn't get enough contracts and some of that was because of cost. There were some estimates that had the technology at, some in the billions of dollars. Some of those estimates, NewScale says, they were overstated, but what they're working on now will be cheaper. But no one's denying that we're still looking at, especially initially, substantial cost. Until we get to a place where we have a critical mass that produces the kinds of economies of scale that make it affordable. But no matter, it's like any type of new technology. When you build the first one, it's going to be expensive, and it has to prove itself, which is a challenge because the utility industry is very conservative. They want to know that the technology is going to work, because it's a matter of keeping the lights on, and not and not just the light bulb, but having the power means a matter of life and death in many instances. And so the grid failing is something that the utilities obviously don't want to ever see. We see it increasingly because of the strains on the grid coming from extreme weather events, wildfires, all those things. So they're very, very conservative. And when you have a new technology, one, it's expensive. How are you going to pay for it? It helps that data centers are a driver here. So you have the wealthiest industry on the planet behind some of it, but they're not paying 100% for these for these technologies. Residential ratepayers are going to have to pay for some of it, and that becomes a challenge when you're talking about billions of dollars.
Paul, you want to do last question before we go to Cleantecher of the Week?
I'll save it for you, Mike Casey. I'm feeling generous in the new year. I know you've been waiting to get Ivan on the show for some time. Go ahead, take the last shot across the bow, and then I'll wrap us up with Cleantecher of the Week.
I think I already asked him about the finances. I guess I'll just note that we're not talking about the waste. I don't hear these guys talking about the waste, and I hate being the skunk at the party, but there's this thing about the waste, and I don't know how, until they find a compelling answer for it, it's kind of a showstopper, at least for me. But you know what, Ivan, we want to thank you. We promise we keep you on very little time. Paul, let's go to a Cleantecher of the Week.
All right, yeah, go check out Ivan's story in the New York Times for more on the piece if you're interested. Cleantecher of the Week, this is Mike's favorite. He likes to give me the biggest tongue twister that he could possibly find, so I'm going to try not to mess it up. We'll start the year one for one. This week's Cleantecher of the Week, to start us off in January 2026, is Mariangela Hungria, a Brazilian agronomist and microbiologist who won the 2025 World Food Prize. That's for her work on microbes that feed plants nitrogen, which allows farmers to cut fertilizer costs and pollution. There you go, Mike. On you. I nailed it.
All right, and the viceroy of This Week in Clean Tech, otherwise known as Brian Mendez, we want to thank him for his wonderful production, and Alex Peterson and Claire Queeran for helping gather these stories.
And one last shout out to Ivan Penn for joining us on this episode of This Week in Clean Tech. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, leave a little feedback, perhaps share a story suggestion. You can read all the articles we discuss each week by clicking the links in the episode description or on the post on factorthis.com.